All right, welcome back, everyone. This is 300 to 3,000, how to grow your property management company to scale. And today we're going to talk about my favorite subject, really the only one I know in property
Accounting?
management. It's the opposite. What's the opposite of accounting? That's sales and marketing. So today we're going to talk about sales and marketing, and Matthew and I mean, this is what he hired me for back in 2014, and it's been a great journey. He and I both have learned a lot, and so we get to just kind of share what's worked for us, what hasn't worked for us over the past many years, and so let's kick it off, Matthew. What do you have to say about sales and marketing?
Yeah, look, there's whole shows built on sales and marketing, whole podcast shows. So I don't know. I hope someone learns something about how we've applied those whole shows that we've watched and listened to and grown from, even within our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And we've kind of applied a lot of their principles to what we're doing. And we'll kind of tell you the way we look at it, the way we see marketing, the way we see sales. And we still have a lot to learn. We're
Yeah,
still
for
kind
sure.
of infants in this area, but we have closed a lot of deals over the last few years, and we'll be sharing kind of how we got to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of let you know, when I came on board, so this was December of 2014. Let's just kind of paint a picture of where we were with sales and marketing. And we had, at that point, we were just in Birmingham, so we were just a one property management company. We were managing 400 or 500 houses at the time, and you had someone. Um, Matt Lavelle was
Yeah,
running.
Lavelle was kind of came into originally. He was running a marketing company before he got here, and he was kind of doing sales and marketing for us. But it
Right.
was very rudimentary. I mean, it wasn't like we were out blowing and going and doing a lot of SEO, SEM type stuff. We were shooting some videos. We just kind of dipping our toe in a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of different waters.
Yeah, but like literally a few days before I came on board, you moved him to a different position in owner onboarding, and we had one BDM, right? So one business development rep at the time, and she was handling all the sales calls. So that's how it was when I came in, and we just, I just really started kind of diving in what's working, what's not working, and I would say over the next year, it was I got into sales. This BDM that we had left, and so I started taking sales calls, learning more and more about the business. It was really good and important for me because I needed to hear what questions owners were asking, what were their concerns, what were they, worried about, and so it was really good for me. And then, I would say over the next 12 months or so, we developed what we're going to talk about today from the marketing standpoint, which is the pyramid, the marketing pyramid. So Matthew, you've got it pulled up, and for those listening on the podcast, we'll walk through the pyramid. But just imagine the base of a pyramid. That's what we wanted to focus on. We wanted to get that in order. So we wanted to make sure that was done well, and then we stack on the pyramid until the very tip of the pyramid's probably going to be some experimental things that maybe nobody's doing yet, or just some out of the box thinking type of situation, some marketing tactics. So Matthew, let's kick it off and walk through the pyramid.
Yeah, where I think a lot of people get in trouble with the pyramid is they try to do things near the top first without becoming very successful with the basics of marketing in our industry. They try to shoot for the stars with crazy things like radio ads or mailers or whatever, and they haven't even gotten the basics down. And so at the bottom of the pyramid really is the basics. Is your website optimized for search engine optimization? Are you getting reviews, getting Google reviews? Those to us, if we're not developing the habit of search engine optimization and Google reviews, then there's no point in spending any extra money on advertising. We need to make sure that we're doing a really good job of that first. And that was the idea of the bottom base of the pyramid.
Yeah, and the base of the pyramid, I mean, I think the temptation for people who love marketing is going to be to jump around and try all kind of different things because we want to chase the next shiny thing. But like Matthew said, this is the base. optimization for your website. And then I would even say to that, something that I see a lot of property managers do is they literally use their website as like a brochure, like an online brochure that just all it does is talk about them, talk about them, and it doesn't answer any questions from owners. It doesn't like really appeal to owners what they're thinking in their minds. And so not only optimizing for SEO and getting those Google reviews, which social proof is a Amazon has made social proof a very big thing for us, and we all know how tough it is in property management to get good reviews. But also be thinking about the copywriting on your website. What is it actually saying? What is it communicating to your owners and to your potential residents?
Well, one of the things about the base is the reason people don't like it is because it's hard work.
Hmm.
It's hard work consistently updating your website from an SEO standpoint. It's hard work consistently staying out ahead of the one-star reviews you're absolutely going to get, but trying to get 4 or 5 5-star reviews to cancel out that one-star review. So this is really all about discipline. And typically, you're right, marketers don't like discipline. But one of the things that we have found is that great marketing is all about consistency and
Yeah,
discipline. And for us, and look, it's not like we don't get off into the weeds sometimes.
sure.
We'll find that our Google reviews, will have avoided them for a month, and then we'll get very focused back on them. But listen, to me, there's no point in spending money on ads until you've done some of these kind of basic things correctly.
Yeah, you're right. And SEO is very, very difficult to get it right. And if you have a WordPress website, then it makes it easier, but there's definitely specific things you need to do to optimize your website. My suggestion would be find someone who can do an audit, somebody who's really good at SEO. Find somebody who can do an audit of your website, give them access to the back end. They're going to look at all kind of tags. They're going to look at there's so much going into that. And as you know, Google changes about every 6 months, kind of their um, prerequisites for good search engine optimization. And so this is something you've got to stay on top of. You can't let it slide and just say, oh, well, it's done forever. So that would be my recommendation for that. And then Google reviews, I'll just tell you I can't, there's too many to count how many people have said, we went online and saw your reviews and decided to use you. And I mean, that alone, it's just social proof. It's just listening to what other people said. As a matter of fact, in Atlanta, our BDM there, Joel, told me that he made a connection with somebody. They have a nice house, $6,000 a month, and the very thing he said was, "Let me tell you, the reason I'm going to use you is simply because of the reviews on your website." So those two things, very, very important.
Yeah, we use a system called Podium to help us get reviews. And this was an idea that came about actually from our accounting department. They went to a dentist appointment, and when they left, they got a text to their phone, and it was a Podium text that basically you click the link and then you give a review. And
Mhm.
so we use a system for gaining reviews. And what I will say with property management is, you are not going to naturally get 5-star reviews. So you need to be
No.
intentional about asking. The places that we found people get the most 5-star reviews are in our leasing department and in our maintenance department. So just think about that as you're trying to go out and grow your business. Those are the areas where we make the residents the most happy, and where they'll typically be willing to give the energy and effort into a 5-star review.
If you can gamify it somehow with your people and make it, some type of competition, then that will probably be helpful as well.
The other thing, one last little tidbit on getting reviews, because I think they're so important. Because if somebody's going to come to your website and you got 2 stars, that you're just not going to get those deals.
No.
What I would say is, when asking for a review, we found that to make it personal. So if I was asking Spencer for a review, I would say, Spencer, do you mind? I get rewarded when you give me a good review. Do you mind going on and giving me a 5-star review and mentioning my name? So when Spencer goes on, he says, I want to thank Matthew for doing an awesome job in leasing or doing an awesome job in maintenance. And now all of a sudden we've connected that review and to one of our team members. And so we're able to reward them for getting those reviews. And listen, these are marketing dollars well spent. If you
Mm-hmm.
give your team a reward, whether it's gamifying it and the winner gets something or everybody gets something based on the number of reviews they get, these are better dollars spent than any SE, we'll talk about SEM next. I would say these are better dollars spent by far.
Yeah, most definitely. We were having before COVID hit, we were going to have a party for like a big get together for the office that had the most 5-star reviews. And also something else, making it personal is good, but also asking for the 5-star review. If you don't say 5-star review, if you're asking, like if your technicians are asking, then maybe you get a 4-star review. And that's just not, it's okay, but you
It
definitely rather have
it doesn't help
5-star.
that big number overall, but I do
No.
think that a lot of people will read the 4-star reviews before they read all the 5-star reviews. So
Yep.
4-star reviews, I love them too.
Yeah. And then have a way to highlight those on your website. So we found a plugin that we use on our website that allows us. And so what we do is we have it post any 4 and 5-star reviews. And then of course somebody can go to Google My Business if they really want to see read every 1-star review that you have. All right, what's next?
Yeah, the next part of the pyramid, so we get the first level right, we move up to the second level, and that is two things. That is search engine marketing, SEM, and the other one is content creation. So let's talk search engine marketing first.
So search engine marketing is anytime that someone's typing in Google or Bing and they're looking for a property manager. And this is, to us, this is what Susie Homeowner does. Again, we've talked about this avatar. This is somebody who has never rented their house before. One owner, one house, and maybe they're moving out of town and want to keep their house. So they go, well, I don't really know anything about property management. Let me search property managers in Birmingham, and they type it in Google, and you want to be organically, the best case is that organically you come up maybe in the 3-pack, and then you want to be somewhere on that page. But then if you are at one of the top 3 positions in the ads, then that's also going to be beneficial. So if somebody sees you in an ad, which is search engine, you're going to pay if they click. So if somebody sees you in the ad, they see you organically, then you're going to be well positioned to get that click and to have somebody go to your landing page. And to
Yeah,
me,
search engine.
go ahead.
There you go.
Well, I was just going to say, and to me, one of the big mistakes that I see people make when property managers make is that when they click that link, they go just to their website. They go to their homepage of their website. And then, like we said, the website is not really built majority of your traffic comes from tenants, from prospective residents. And so there's all kind of distracting things. What we want to do is take them to a landing page that is specifically speaking to them. And specifically, the goal is to get their contact information so that we can reach out to them.
I have found that this industry loves search engine marketing because it is quantifiable. You can see a click and you pay for driving somebody to your website or somebody to a landing page, or even some people do it by leads. You pay per the lead. And so we love that as an industry because we know exactly what our cost per click or our cost per lead is to get these leads. And so this becomes very easy to do. In fact, some people, I think, put this in front of the base of the pyramid because
Mm-hmm.
it is so quantifiable. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, the ones at the base are free leads, and these you are paying for. And so you want to make sure that you also, one of the things that we got some advice from a very prominent CMO in our world was that we wanted to make sure that our digital house was in order before we started driving too many leads to it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, again, get your base correct, get your website right, and then SEM ought to be added on top of that, and it ought to multiply the number of leads that come in.
Yeah, and so what somebody's going to do typically, even if they go to a landing page and they read all this great information, maybe they want to check out more things. Maybe they want to see what kind of houses you have for lease, to see if their house kind of matches what you do. And so they go to your homepage. They start looking. So you're not going to probably be able to attribute every single paid ad. So we may get some paid ad clicks that end up coming in looking like organic. So attribution's kind of a tougher thing, but for those that do fill out the forms on that landing page, absolutely, we love to say, hey, we know we paid X for that exactly this much for that lead. And when I first came on board, probably again 12 months into it, I decided that, hey, I was going to do this for us. And so I built all the AdWords campaigns. I built the landing pages, all of the ads. I was bidding, I was doing all this stuff. And I probably did that for a year and a half, 2 years before we finally decided to outsource, just so we could, I mean, it takes a lot of time, especially as we were moving into other markets, just trying to keep up with everything and staying on top of it. So we outsourced to Geek Real Estate, which I'm sure several of you have heard of before. And then we also have somebody else doing some things for us.
Talk a little bit about the decision to outsource that piece of the business. We're going to talk about insourcing and outsourcing in another podcast, but talk a little bit about your decision. I know you said time, but kind of expound on that, because I think that's important. I think there's a case to be made both ways.
Yeah, there is, most definitely. I would say the case for keeping it in-house is you control everything. So you control the messaging, you control everything that goes on. I mean, really, honestly, and if we want to keep them, we want to send them to our website, then that's the case for me continuing to do it. The case for outsourcing is that, in the instance of somebody like a Geek, is that's all they do. Like, this is all they do is live and breathe this. They don't have any other, they're not managing salespeople. They're not doing anything else in the marketing world. All they do is worry, eat, and sleep paid ads and their whole goal. I mean, they only get paid if these leads fill out a form. And so they're incentivized. I mean, to me, that's probably one of the bigger points in their favor, is they're incentivized to get these people to fill out a form, which gives us then an opportunity to capitalize on that.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
it
Thanks
is.
for
I
sharing
mean,
that.
yeah, but it is. I mean, it really is. I still struggle with us doing it versus, like, we've even talked about having somebody in house. Let's hire somebody in house if that's all they do is manage ads. And I'm sure we'll have that discussion down the road as we continue to grow.
It's certainly, in light of our insourcing and outsourcing, going to be an interesting.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing is content creation. So that's included kind of in our second level, SEM and content creation. We started getting really intentional about creating content about 2 years ago and started creating a bunch of videos. We'd always kind of created videos, but we started a series called Questions Owners Ask after the sales line. Marcus Sheridan said, if someone asks, you answer. And so we literally started trying to create hyperlocal videos for each market, answering all the questions that a lot of owners ask us when they're on sales calls, because we had this perception that they might be typing that into Google to get their questions answered.
Yeah, I think in 2000, so I was on at the end of 2014, probably the beginning of 2016, I started getting serious about writing long blog posts. So I was writing blog posts that were 1,200 to 1,500 words long, and filling them with links, all very good, helpful information. I remember interviewing different people, again, just trying to hit on some of these big topics. But what we found were probably some of our most, the ones that people liked the most were the ones where Matthew and I were standing in front of a map talking about Birmingham, buying houses in Birmingham, where you should buy your rental houses. So, to Matthew's point, then it was just about a year or two later that we were like, let's just start the video series, Questions Owners Ask. I mean, and there was a period of time where we were recording, goodness, 4 or 5 pieces of content every single week. I mean, we were glued to the video camera and creating them and all of our markets, but obviously we saw the most traction in Birmingham because I think most of the content we created was Birmingham. And then we even created some general stuff, just like 3 questions you should ask your property manager before you hire them. But we realized that hyper local stuff works better.
Yeah, I remember at one point I even bet somebody $500, which I still owe them $500, that I was going to create a piece of content a day for a year. And I
How
think I
far did
did
you
it for,
get?
I think I did about 2 or 3 months, and literally was laying in bed one night. Actually, I was with him. We were in Colorado,
Traveling, yeah.
and I was with Gray, and I realized that I hadn't recorded a piece of content for that day, and I just gave up
That's
and
when you
fell
just pick
asleep.
up your phone in bed and record a Facebook Live and just be like, "Hey, I just want to
Hey,
answer this
yeah.
one question while I'm in bed. I'm so committed to you." So,
Well, but one of the things that's interesting, I mean, you record a video and somebody watches it, or 13 people watch it. That's 13 conversations you don't have to have. One of the things I always think about is in terms of leverage, and videos are very high leverage. You think, oh, well, only 13, because you see these videos that have hundreds of thousands of views. And I don't think that's the case. These are 13, you had one conversation with a camera, and 13 people were able to consume that. And these things really build trust. I go back to, like, my pastor at church. I've met him personally twice in going to church there for quite some time, maybe 15
big
years.
church, big church.
It's a real big church, and of course he's on the video screen, but I feel like I know him because I've been watching him on video for so long. So this type of content creation doesn't just answer questions. It also builds trust. It exhibits transparency so that people start to trust you. And one of the big things that's important when people are choosing who they want to be their property manager is around trust. Who do I trust with my home the most? And so Susie homeowners love this. We've had people even call and basically say, hey, I've watched all your videos or some of your videos, and I'm ready to sign up. So it does have some tremendous closing value before we talk about sales.
Yeah, and you can reach both Susie homeowner and Mike the investor, right? So you can create videos that are really for Mike the investor, especially ones that are just starting out and building their portfolio. They're sponges for information. They're on bigger pockets. They're looking for stuff. And so to that point, we created a podcast called the Birmingham Rental Investor. Like, this is a podcast all for Birmingham rental investors. So how valuable is that going to be for people who are considering Birmingham? Maybe they live in California or New York or Florida, and they're considering Birmingham as their a market of choice. Well, it's going to be invaluable, especially when we're interviewing some of the the pros here in town. So I love. I mean, the reviews and the reviews and the content, the stuff that you make, whether it be blogs or vlogs or podcasts or whatever, those 2 things, they're free. It just takes a lot of work, and but most definitely worth your time.
Where do we shoot most of that content, Spencer?
Just on our phones in the
Yeah, I
office.
mean, that's my point. Is like, you already have what you have, and
Yeah.
these iPhones and Samsung phones are becoming so good. The cameras on them are so good that you can shoot the content right there on your phone. So, like, no excuse to not doing them, except you're too lazy to do it, or
That's right.
don't
I,
have enough time, or
we didn't
whatever.
have microphones like this until just a couple of months ago when we started recording a podcast. Otherwise, it was just the iPhone, a stabilization, just a tripod, and that's it.
Yeah.
Find some
All right,
good lighting. Don't shoot in the dark.
that's right.
Sorry.
Let's go to the next one, radio and mailers. So now we're up to the 3rd level of a 5-level pyramid. Radio and mailers. So for us, we don't want to do any sort of radio and mailers, which we've only done mailers, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
before we kind of dial in our search engine marketing and content creation. And we feel like we haven't dialed that in yet. Obviously, we're creating content right now about around the Birmingham rental investor and considering doing some hyper local shows in each market that we're in. So let's talk about radio first. Thoughts on radio, Spencer?
Yeah, we actually acquired a company that was using radio, and they just raved and raved and raved about it. We at that point kind of dismissed it, and then started thinking about it more carefully until we got the price on radio, and then we were like, well. But we did have this. Matthew mentioned earlier a conversation with a a former CMO in our industry, and her advice before you do radio, like she was specifically talking about radio, especially before you do that, get your digital house in order, which radio is expensive, and it's something that you need to do consistently. It's not something you can throw a few grand at and say, I'm going to give this a try for a month. I mean, you literally need to probably be committed for at least 6 months to 7 months. And then even then, you're not going to be able to 100% track your success with radio. But what she said is, like, all leads should rise. Like, you'll get more call-ins, you'll get more people filling out forms on your website. But yeah, so I would say we're still, as far as we are into this thing, we're still in the first two, trying to perfect the first two. And before we dip our toe into radio, which it's not dipping a toe, it's like literally a commitment.
Yeah, when you spend that kind of money, it's definitely a commitment. And one of the things I want people to understand is we're kind of weaving a marketing tapestry. You're not going to really know, and we're just adding different pieces to this puzzle, to this tapestry as we weave it. And as you grow, you're not going to be able to attribute leads to a certain place anymore, because someone may hear your ad on a radio and then go fill out a form online after they've checked you out and watched your videos. So all leads should swell in conjunction with adding each new like level to this pyramid. So we don't know a ton about radio, so I don't know that we can talk too much more about it.
Yeah, we've done direct mail though. We've done some
let's talk
direct
about
mail.
that.
Yeah, I mean, direct mail is, it's all depends on how good your list is, right? And so we've pulled lists before. Typically, when we do that, we're looking at non-owner occupied lists that are rental houses, and sending to the mailing address, the owner's address. We've seen some success. I do remember we were giving away a lot of management and saw a spike, but it's still, we're talking about like 1%, 2% maybe response on direct mail.
The thing that becomes really easy, I think, for people in our industry is to just spend money to try to drive leads. It's like, oh, well, I'm, busy, so I'm just going to spend money. And one of the things I don't want to overemphasize or underemphasize is the fact that you absolutely need to do the stuff that is a lot of work on the base before you get to sending out those mailers, because it's way too easy to just throw money at a problem like marketing versus doing the hard work. Now, mailers, again, just like radio, is the next layer and super important. And I think
I was just going to say, what's important about mailers also is what is on the letter. If you just have a general letter saying, call me to let me help you with your property management, then that's probably not going to do it. You need to remember, these people, especially non-owner occupieds, they're getting inundated with direct mail from buyers, from wholesalers, people trying to buy their house. So they've seen it all. I mean, they're looking at postcards, they're looking at letters, they're looking at all kind of stuff. So it needs to stand out. You need to have some type of offer, or you need to be a very, very good copywriter before you do that. And then, as far as pulling lists, you can take those lists. What we've also done before is loaded them into Facebook and targeted those people on Facebook with a very similar offer. You can do that in the back end of Facebook. However, I was just recently in Facebook, and with fair housing, they have really cracked down, and they know, because we're GK Houses, they know our industry, and it doesn't matter. Like, I was advertising for this podcast, and they were like, hey, you're in the housing industry. You can't target this person. You can't have age. There can be no age discrimination, no male or female. I mean, they've really cracked down. So you'll have to test that out and see if it's available to you.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. But what they've done is they've just broadened and basically
they're dealing with so many people. I mean,
yeah, all of us are. I mean, we might be looking for a certain demographic that buys houses that would be renting houses, most likely to rent houses, and they're incorrectly attributing that to fair housing stuff. So the next step up, we think, would be webinars and investor meetups. So let's talk about these two together, because they are kind of fairly similar. a webinar and an investor meetup are basically getting a group of people together, whether that's in person, an investor meetup, or a webinar, and basically having a conversation, leading some sort of um, like class and telling them, whether it's an hour-long course or whatever, but it's the whole idea of grouping people together in one spot.
It's investor education. I mean, these people, again, like we mentioned, are looking for, they're sponges for, especially when they're starting out and looking to buy. I mean, listen, you all have probably RIA groups in your market. So these RIA groups are meeting, they're investor meetups essentially. And we've got at least 2 in Birmingham, and then in other markets, I mean, they're happening all the time. So that's what this is. You can do it as a webinar, which I know that Roofstock is doing. I was just on their website yesterday, or maybe I got an email yesterday, and it was an on-demand webinar. So it doesn't even have to be a live webinar. It's just an on-demand. Like you click on that link and they'll start that webinar for you, or in-person meetups. But uh, you just, you got to be prepared for that. But the whole goal in doing that is to be seen as the expert. Like you want to be seen as the expert, whether they are ready for you then or not, but you want them. And these people, these investors talk to each other, right? So a lot of it's a big referral network. So if we are able to, knock this out of the park in Birmingham, then people from California are going to be talking about, hey, this is what I learned on GK House's podcast or website or on their webinar. And, the same thing for all these other markets, but you've got to really be prepared for that. And we know some people that do some investor meetups and have done them for years and done really well with them.
Yeah, no, they're very successful. Again, for us, it's about just working our way up the pyramid, and we feel like we've got to get the basics right before we get up to these webinars and investor meetups. The last thing is long form courses.
Long form courses, you mean like real estate courses, like creating
Yeah,
courses?
investor courses. Yep.
Yeah, which
GK
you can do that.
University.
GK University, you can definitely do that. Which is, I mean, there's all kinds of software out there. One that comes to mind is Teachable. Another one that comes to mind is Kajabi, that are built for online courses. So if you're a property manager, this is what I would say. If you're a property manager in your city and you started out investing in property, maybe you still invest in property and you've got a lot of local knowledge, then this may be a great way for you to start getting people interested in your services, is by just training them, teaching them, because it only makes sense if you take somebody from 0 houses and help them get to their first house, second house, third house, and they need property management. It only makes sense they'll use you. So again, I think that's a great way, but a little bit
And
high on the totem pole for us on the
Yeah, and the
pyramid.
course doesn't necessarily need to be in online. It can also be in person. So,
Mm-hmm.
weekend course, bring a bunch of people in, bring 10 to 50 people in, teach them about real estate investing, teach them about how property management works, and it could have a tremendous return for you. But to some degree, you need an audience. You need to be able to build a base by using the rest of this pyramid to get to that point where somebody would see you as the expert to spend a whole weekend of their life listening to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've been brought in actually. If you're in a market where they have a bunch of turnkey providers or turnkey providers, you could also partner with some turnkey providers and help educate some of the people that are interested in their product on the local market, because we've been asked to do that before.
All right, so that's the marketing pyramid, and now say we switch to sales.
Let's go into sales. I mean, this is a big deal because I ran sales for quite some time. Again, I mentioned it was very, very helpful for me to, intuitively I knew, because I've bought and sold a lot of houses in the past and know what people are generally looking for. I've been a client of GK Houses since the beginning. So, but hearing people talk and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, how often should we follow up with people, what kind of email should we be sending them, should we be texting them, how often should we be calling them, all these things are very, very important. So do you want to talk about first maybe the profile of a good BDM, I think?
Yeah, so we're big believers in culture index, and of course, we talked with Trey about this earlier in our podcast. And so we really think that there's certain personalities that are better at sales than others, and it's kind of very intuitive. Uh, we think people that are highly social love to continually talk to people. So somebody like me who is low on the social scale would not want to continuously have to talk to people on a regular basis. We think that they also ought to be willing to work autonomously. So they don't necessarily like to work on teams. They want to work by themselves, and they're highly social. The things that they are not necessarily good at would be the details
Mhm.
and sometimes the pace at which they work. They go in bursts. And so we have created what we think is the perfect profile in the back end of our culture index. And so we're searching for people that are very autonomous, very socially driven, that can go out and grow these businesses for us and go out and land these sales.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's important about somebody who is highly social and highly autonomous is they want to win and they can take a lot of rejection. Okay, so they want to win. So the best salespeople are motivated to win, and they it's okay if they get told no, if they get beat out by a competitor, whatever. They're going to keep going. They're not going to let that ruin their day and get down in the dumps. They're just going to keep plowing through. I would say right now we have 4 BDMs, and every one of them matches what we just talked about for this, as far as culture index goes. And um, to me, I think something we discovered, Matthew, when I started doing it was, you know what, one thing that we're going to be committed to is there's 2 things that we're really going to be committed to. Number one, we want to be the quickest follow up. So if somebody reaches out, they fill out a form, we want to get to them so fast. You may, as a property manager, you may subscribe to something like All Property Management, where a lead is going not only to you, but to 3 or 4 other property managers. How quickly do you need to be the one that reaches out? Well, very quick. And if you're in a competitive market like we are in Nashville and Atlanta and Denver, then you can imagine there's going to be a lot of people reaching out at once. But we want to be the quickest to return calls and follow up people. And then second, we want to outlast our competition with following up. In other words, we want to just continue following up until we hear a no. We don't want to stop. We want just to keep going, because a lot of people will give up after 2 or 3. And especially if you're an owner of a property management company and you're handling sales too, man, you've got a ton of other things you're dealing. I mean, you're doing property management, and so it's much harder for you to continue to follow up and stay on top of these things. So to me, those 2 things are vitally important.
Yeah, it's really about personal discipline. Just like great marketing is being disciplined, great sales is also about being disciplined. You always say the fortune is in the follow up, and it sure is in this business, because people's decision timelines sometimes are very long. And the longer
Mhm.
you can stay out in front of them, if you're the last one standing, then they're just naturally going to choose you. The other thing I think is important, going back to being the first one that answers the phone or first one that gets them on the phone, is you've got to remember that everybody's not out there, and this isn't their full-time job, is to look for a property manager. They are busy people. And if you are the one that answers the phone first, then you will capture an inordinate amount of their attention, because you're going to be able to learn and teach them. They're going to be able to learn from you while you teach them and build trust along the way. And they may not even have enough time if they're really busy, because a lot of our avatars for people that need property managers are super busy. And if you
Mhm.
answer all their questions and you capture an inordinate amount of their time, they may not have enough time to go talk to another property manager. And so by virtue of the fact that you're the only one that talked to them and you were able to build enough trust with them, they're going to go with you.
Yeah, and we found that the quicker that we can, um, if we get them on the phone and they're serious, the sooner we can get out to the property and meet them face to face, the better it is for us. Now, when we were growing, we were handling all of sales from Birmingham, Alabama. So we were first in Nashville. We were handling everything from Birmingham. We were in Chattanooga, in Little Rock. We were doing it all from Birmingham, and that we found out was just not going to work, especially in a place like Nashville. Somebody wanted to, when I answered the phone and spoke with them, gave them great information, they were like, I'd love for you to come and meet me at my house. And I was like, oh, well, let me see if I can schedule somebody else to do that for you. And it just wasn't as fluid as saying, yes, I'll be out there. When do you want to meet? And so now that we have these BDMs and these markets, we're seeing a lot better appointment rate. And I know that some property managers, I've got friends who they look at leads as one thing, like leads that come into the office. That could be a call or a form that's filled out, but then they look at opportunities as something else. And an opportunity is when you're face to face with them. And so they track close percentage on both of those. So to me, that kind of leads into, you need some way to track all of this. If you want to be, to me, if you want to be successful, you cannot scratch this stuff down on your notepad. You can't keep it in your, just look through your emails. You can't, you need to have a tool. So we use Lead Simple, which I'm thankful for Nick Goudreau, who convinced me back in 2016 to use Lead Simple. And it's been great because it is what it sounds like. I mean, it's so simple that any one of us can use it, and it's great for tracking and making sure we're following up with all of these leads.
Yeah, it's an industry specific tool, and man, it has really changed the way we look at the business. And Spencer spent a bunch of time in it, and you need to spend some time in it when you first get the software. Like, the software doesn't come just ready to do everything you need it to do. It certainly comes prepared to do what capture
Mm-hmm.
leads and do the things that they can design it to do. But all of your nurturing campaigns, all of your follow-up emails, you need to build those out and put some intentionality into it. Spend some time doing that, because you think about leverage, and we're always thinking about leverage as we scale a company. If you write the best email consistently and you have 10 or 15 of those best emails that you've written, those are going to go out to dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And so that's just leveraging your time over and over and over again. So sometimes property managers don't like to slow down and focus and do these types of things. But again, if you're going to scale the business, it's very important that you get these emails right.
Yeah, and this is another way we brought content into what we're doing. We are, if we have a conversation with somebody and they tell us, okay, so it's June right now that we're recording this. Let's say a lot of times we'll get them, they'll say, I'm gonna rent my house in 4 or 5 months. Well, we're not going to talk to them every week or even every other week or once a month for 4 or 5 months. We want to go and meet them at their house. We want to provide them with all the best information we can. And then what we do is we put them on a drip campaign, which is, and Lead Simple will help you do this. It has different stages. And as you plug somebody into a different stage, you can have different drips. You can have different tasks. Like it can say, text them, and it could even have a text in there, or it can say call them, or it will have an automated email. So we just want to stay in front of somebody without like just drowning them and having to call them, but we're delivering good content to them. Like, hey, here's some things as you prepare to rent your house, here are the things you need to think about. Again, this content is very helpful. We want to be seen as the expert, and Lead Simple has allowed us and it's taken a ton of time. We've got hundreds of emails in Lead Simple, but it's allowed us to be very, very intentional about the message that we're communicating to people along the way in different stages.
Yeah, and I would say the last thing that I would like to add is, we have found that you have to have time for sales. And it's very hard for what we call our team leaders, the people that are running these markets, to have the time for an owner an owner of a home that calls. And having dedicated people focused on that, focused on follow-up, focused on the numbers, has really increased our close percentage. And a good BDM in a good system, a system that you build, ought to more than pay for themselves by bringing in more business.
And what else are they going to be able to do? Well, we decided, a while ago, we didn't want it just to be, hey, taking orders. Now, back when we had somebody in Birmingham and they were handling 4 or 5 markets, then yes, that's all it was, because that's all they had time for. They didn't have time for anything else. But now that we have people specifically in these markets, they have time for other types of activity. They have time to go to RIA meetings. They have time to connect with realtors, to connect with attorneys and mortgage brokers. They have time to do these types of things, get to know investors in the market, take them and have coffee. Take the same things you probably did when you were starting your business and when we were starting. Those were the things that we were doing. Just, we call them hustle habits. So we've got a list of hustle habits that each of our BDMs are responsible for, on top of obviously handling inbound leads.
Yeah, one of the things about Birmingham is we have gotten to the point where we have such a brand and such a kind of been out there messaging consistently that there are a lot of order taking. So our close percentage is higher in Birmingham, but we've got to build those up in other markets. And we are, by having dedicated people that are out doing hustle habits. And the longer we're in the markets too, as our brand becomes more and more established, the trust gets built because people have seen our brand around the community. Then the at some point, Birmingham ought to be just another one of the markets, and we ought to consistently be closing. But we follow our close percentage very closely. And one of the things we think, Spencer, is that it's not, you can't follow a close percentage right after the end of the month. So we're in June. We don't want to know at the end of June what our close percentage was for June. We look back, we do a 90-day look back, and we even skip 60 days back. So we're looking back because we know that a lot of this is a long tail sell.
That's right. Yeah. So we ran the numbers when we were first trying to figure out how to do this, and it looked like that 90-day was probably the best, the 3 best months that we decided to take, and not best like from a close percentage, but most accurate. It had given people enough time to close the deals, because we're still working on deals. Like, it's June, we're still working on deals in May, and we'll still get some that close maybe even 60 days, 90 days down the road, and that's okay. But yes, most definitely we wanted to track that. And something else I'll say about helping somebody or having a BDM that really hustles out there and develops these relationships, you are going to close a much higher percentage of those leads than you are any kind of paid ad that you get. Like, if you get a paid ad, they are kicking tires. They don't know who you are. Now, if you've done a good job creating content on your website and follow-ups and content and follow-ups, they'll get a sense of who you are. But let me tell you something, referrals are a beautiful thing, because I was just talking to one of our BDMs in Atlanta, Joel, and he was just talking about these realtors who are referring him business, and the realtor has a relationship and they're a trusted source, so that when they say, hey, you need to talk to Joel at GK Houses, they can definitely manage your property. They don't typically go out and shop around. They literally take this person's word for it. So another, we know that referrals, we close probably about a 70% of referrals that we get, which is a lot better than cold traffic.
All right. That's good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. I think this will be really helpful.
That's it. All right. All right, everybody. Well, listen, thanks for listening. If you have any questions about sales and marketing, this is something I love to talk about. So email us, podcast@gkhouses.com. I'll get that and be happy to talk to you. So, all right, that's another episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it and leave us a great review, please. Please. We have very fragile egos. We need to see great reviews, right? All right. See y'all next episode.